chapter 18. First Kings chapter 18. While you're turning there, let me give you some context into what's going on in this passage. Ahab is the king of Israel at this point, and he has a wife named Jezebel, and they are pretty terrible. They are not good people. They have basically decided that the way that they are going to run Israel is to get themselves as much power as possible. They do not love God. They do not want the things of God to be the things of Israel. And so when this happens, God usually will take people and he will, like someone, a prophet, who will go and speak truth to these people. In this case, the guy's name is Elijah. He goes to Ahab and he goes to Jezebel and he says to them, listen, because of your wickedness, there is going to be no rain in Israel for a long time. And in a country and in a society where they desperately need rain for their crops, this is very bad news. A famine's going to come. People will probably die. And God is trying to get their attention and wake them up to say, this is not how I intended for you as my people to live. So, just like God says, no rain falls on Israel for a long time. A little bit later, God says to Elijah, go and tell Ahab that I'm going to bring rain again. And so there's this messenger who goes and he tells Ahab that Elijah wants to meet with him. And so Elijah and Ahab meet, and what happens is they both blame each other for why Israel is in the state that it's in, why it's a mess. And this sets the scene for an epic battle for whose God is actually the God who watches over Israel. And so this is where we pick up in verse 20 of 1 Kings chapter 18. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. So stop trying to serve God and serve Baal at the same time. Stop trying to just make it work for both. It doesn't work that way. Pick one. But the people didn't say anything. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you can call on the name of your God, and I'll call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God. Then all the people said, what you say is good. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one of the bulls and prepare it first. Since there are so many of you, call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar that they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he's deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he's sleeping, and he needs to be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response, no one answered, no one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, come here to me. And they came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, your name shall be Israel. With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold a bunch of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. And then he said to them, fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood. Do it again, he said, and they did it again. Do it a 3rd time, he ordered, and they did it a 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I'm your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. And when all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." And then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let any of them get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. This is one of those stories that I feel like if you were in this scenario, you would be so pumped. You would feel like God showed up, God used you, you would feel closer to God than you've ever felt before because you saw Him do something that only He could do. This is one of those moments that you keep with you. That sets the trajectory of your spiritual life in an up and to the right manner. I guess this way for you. And you would think that this would be something that for Elijah would change his life. You see, for us, sometimes we are in a good spot spiritually, but it doesn't take much for us to lose it. To lose that feeling, to come off of the mountain of camp and to experience something here that just kind of makes it feel like you didn't even go to camp. It's just a distant memory. And this is what happens to Elijah. The very next chapter. You see, Ahab goes and he tells his wife what happened. And Jezebel sends a message. She sends a message to Elijah and she says, "What you did to those prophets, the 450 that you killed, I'm going to do the same to you." And Jezebel's crazy, so he's like, okay. She's already killed a bunch of prophets of God already, so he freaks out. In chapter 19, he runs away. Ahab told Jezebel everything. And so, verse 3, Elisha was afraid, and he ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, and while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors." And then they lay down under the bush and fell asleep. This is crazy, right? This seems like a crazy story. Elijah just had this amazing miracle happen, something that some of us wish would happen. Like, I wish God would show up that way. If God showed up that way, I would totally be on fire is probably the best way to describe it. I would see this as God active in my life. I would live my life totally different. But then the next day, it's like the next day, he freaks out. And he wishes he were dead. It's like, what happened? Why can't he understand that what happened the day before, the God that showed up the day before, is the same God that was with him the next day? You see, this is far more real for us than I think we want to admit. Right? This is something that you may have experienced time and time again. It's why we long for camp. Right? It's like there's something that happens at camp. I guess this is why this happens on a mountain. Maybe this is the source of all that. You go up and you get totally on fire for God. You feel like He's right there. He shows up and you're like, yes! And then you come home. And you tell your friends about the excitement. Or you tell your parents about the excitement. Or you tell your siblings about the excitement and they're not as excited as you. They may even be opposed to the choices you made or opposed to you living your life this way. And it instantly kills your vibe. Like if you were to look at it as a battery, you come back from camp fully charged and it takes 1 instant for your battery to become instantly drained. You see, it's not like phones where it takes a long time for it to go away. It can happen in an instant. And it's in this moment that I want us to see that we don't have this same luxury, right? I can unplug my phone and carry it with me most of the day and it'll last. We have things that can, extend the battery life. We carry this giant thing around with us that gives us 400% of our battery just to ensure that we'll never run out. We have an indicator on our phone that tells us how much battery we have left. We get an alert when we get down to 20%. We get an alert when we get down to 10%. We can see it. But in our lives, in our spiritual lives, we don't necessarily have that same luxury. And what we do is we just go through life. We go through the day-to-day. And we're not aware of where our spiritual battery is at. But the longer we go unplugged from the source, the longer that we pretend that we can do it on our own, the longer that we don't connect back to Jesus, to God as our source of power, the faster our battery drains. The faster we fall apart, the less bold we become, the easier it is for us to just fit in with everybody else around us who's doing the same thing that our culture is doing. You see stories like this in the Bible, it's so easy for me to go, man, I'm so glad I'm not like Elijah. If God did that, I would never do what Elijah did. Right? But we do that all the time. These stories are for us to look at and go, oh yeah, I do that. I get that. Maybe, like if someone were to threaten to kill you because of your faith in God, I'm guessing a lot of us in here would be a little bit scared and would probably run away. That's just a guess, but that's the reality that I think we live in. Because when people make fun of us, like, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to be really out there. When someone, like, you invite someone to church and they're like, no, I don't want to go. I think Christians are stupid. You're like, yeah, Christians are dumb. I'm not a Christian. I was going to go and check it, but that's a dumb idea, right? No, right? We do that. We are far more like Elijah. And what we see over and over again is that there's a source of strength. There's a source of power for us that's available to us. It says, I want you to have life. I want you to have strength. I want you to be able to do all these things that I'm inviting you into. Will you just connect with me? And we go, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. And we need to realize that if we want to experience life, if we want to experience the source of this power, we have to constantly be plugged in. We just don't have the luxury of being able to do it on our own. That's where all of these stories come from, is when Elijah got so scared that he's like, this is all on me now. In the conversation he has with God, he's like, I'm the only one left. And God's like, no, you're not. There's all these other people around you. You aren't the only one left. But when we try and do it on our own, when we separate ourselves, when we unplug from the source of our strength and our power, we begin to buy into the lies and the fear and all these other things that want us to stay disconnected. And before long, our spiritual battery is drained. And so what we do here is we try and 2 times a week point you to Jesus, encourage you to connect to the source. But 2 days is not enough. If this is the only time where you come and you worship and you read scripture and you're interacting with people in community, it's not enough. You need those things or some of those things every single day in order to stay connected. Right? Because how many times have you left on a Thursday night and you're like energized, you're like, yes, I'm ready. And then Friday happens and you bomb a test and you're like, I don't even know if God's real anymore. Right? Like, it's so easy for us to lose any momentum from a Thursday to a Friday or from a Sunday to a Monday. It's not enough. And so the Bible is always trying to show us that. It's always trying to show us you can't do it by yourself. And Jesus talks about abiding in the vine, staying connected to the vine. He says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Because when you do it on your own, it doesn't take much for fear, for obstacles to cause us to lose sight, to drain our spiritual batteries. So I want us to close with this verse. It's in 1 Peter chapter 1. Sorry, 2 Peter chapter 1. Get the right chapter. 2 Peter chapter 1. He says, this is Peter speaking, and he says his divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and goodness. His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life. His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life. There's not more knowledge that you need. There's not more stuff that you need. His divine power has given us everything we need. If we are followers of Jesus, he has given us everything that we need through his power. The question is, are we connected to that power? Or are we trying to do it on our own? You don't need winter camp. You don't need CIY. You don't need Elevate. You don't need all the things that we do. You need Jesus. You need his divine power. And it's readily available to you if you will just plug into it, connect with it. And so the question is, how connected are you? How often are you plugging back into the source? Or are you trying to do it all on your own? Let's pray. Jesus, we need you. We need your power. Because on our own, we are scared little kids. We're scared of what people might say about us. We're scared of what might happen if we actually live this thing out. And story after story in the Bible is full of people who are the exact same, who are scared of the obstacles, who are scared of the circumstances, who don't know if they can do it. And what they all realize, or the ones who are successful, what they realize is that if they plug into you, if they trust you, if they rely on you, that you will give them the strength and the power that they need. That you are the source of everything that we need. Would you help us to plug into that? Would you help us to pursue you with everything that we have? Instead of trying to do it on our own. Trying to show people how strong we are. Trying to show people how capable we are. Would you help us to just trust you that your divine power has been given to us? Jesus, we need that if we want to have any sort of an impact on the world around us. If we want to have any influence with the people around us, it's not going to be by anything that we do. It's going to be through your divine power and what you want to do in us and through us. So help us to plug in, to connect to you as our source. We love you and pray all these things in Jesus' name. Hey, things have changed. If you haven't noticed, there is construction all over. So, you need to pay attention. Listen up.